Okay, hi guys. Welcome to the third episode of Edges and Sledges. By now, you should know I'm Varun from Singapore. I have my co-bloggers here with me, DJ from London and Ashwin from Toronto. So, welcome to episode three. In fact, my ex-boss used to say that the first one is a dot, the second becomes a line, and the third is a trend. So, I think with three, we're kind of starting a trend here, guys. It's a weekly podcast, weekly Facebook live video. So, make sure you catch us. Today's episode, we've got, I think, a couple of exciting topics. Firstly, we want to deep dive a little bit into the Nidhas Trophy, how it's been this last 1 week, and we know the finalists are India versus Bangladesh. So that'll take place Sunday evening, India Singapore time. We'll talk a little bit about discipline issues that are coming up in cricket quite often. I would say more than regular. And then towards the end, we'll just kind of try something different and flash a couple of quick news highlights that we've seen through the week. So let's get started. Let me ask Ashwin first to talk a little bit about the Nidhas Trophy and maybe flash up on screen some of the recent results.
Yeah, thanks. Hi, everybody. I'm going to lead through the first topic. I wanted to start by saying I'm glad you said the comment about three making a trend. I would have bet among the three of us, you were the one who wouldn't have got us to or wouldn't have bet we got to three episodes. So I'm glad you are the one.
But what I do like, by the way, Varun, and I can see the reflection in your glasses that you're watching cricket while you're doing this. I can see the green field in your glasses.
Yeah, Star Cricket is on, India South Africa 2015 tour. It's always on. I was watching Ranji before this, so.
Yeah, and if you, I mean, you can't get enough of it, right?
Yeah,
like he's looking.
That's why we're here, right? That's
While he's doing
once
this
a week, so that we can get more and more cricket. So with that, I can jump in. Last time at episode 2, when we connected, we had done. We were halfway through the group stage of the Nidahas series. Each of the countries had won one match, so we said, "Hey, this is getting pretty exciting." We've now had the other 3 matches. It's Saturday the 17th when we record this, and the final is tomorrow: India versus Bangladesh, which was a little bit of a surprise. So I'll do a quick wrap up of what happened, and then jump in to get your guys' thoughts on what happened. So I'm just going to pop up the graphic on the screen. As you can see, the points table shows India and Bangladesh were the 2 teams to qualify. Disappointing for Sri Lanka, who in their own backyard are not going to be in the final. I was saying earlier, one of my friends, Aaron, who's in Colombo, bought 14 tickets for the match, and now he's going to be there with 13 other Sri Lankans, and they're going to be cheering for India. So maybe we'll know who's in the stand, because I don't expect a ton of people to show up to not see the home ground. So 3 matches this week. The first one that happened on Monday, I believe it was, which was the 4th match of the series, was India versus Sri Lanka. Sri Lanka batted first, put 152 on the board. Highlight there for India was 4 for 27 by Shardul Thakur, restricted them to 152. Both openers got out quickly, which is unusual. Rohit and Dhawan both, didn't trouble the scorers too much. But then Pandey, who came in at 5, and Karthik, who came in at 6, both batted brilliantly to close up the match. The second match was India versus Bangladesh. The only match, by the way, the 5th match, was the only one out of the 6 so far where the team batting first won. So, Rohit batted brilliantly, hit 89 of 61. Raina came in, hit a quick fire 47, put up 176 on the board, and then Bangladesh just, fell about 17 runs short thanks to a brilliant bowling spell by the young Washington Sundar, who we talked about in our first episode. Picked up 3 wickets for just 22 runs in his 4 overs. So those were the 2 India matches. India, clearly qualified for the final with 6 points. It set up for a final or a 6th match, which was sort of a virtual semi-final, they were calling it, where the winner of Sri Lanka versus Bangladesh would make it through to the finals. I'm going to pause before I do a summary of that match, just to ask you guys 2 questions about the 2 India matches. The first one, we talked about Rishabh Pant. He made the team in the first 2 matches, was dropped, and KL Rahul came in. Rahul, in the 2 matches he played, he batted at number 3 in the first match, made 18 of 17 runs, 18 runs off 17 balls, and got out hit wicket, India's first hit wicket dismissal in T20 internationals. And he didn't get to bat in India's second game, despite the fact that India lost, India only lost the 2 wickets, but they sent Raina at number 3 and Karthik at 4. So thoughts on the Rahul versus Pant dilemma? I'll just quickly say, I like Rahul. He's a great player, but I don't love the theory of the philosophy of playing Pant for 2 games and then dropping him on the back of 2 average performances. You guys?
Varun, do you want to take that first?
Yep. So I think, personally, I'm a big fan of Pant, but we haven't seen enough of him. I think, to be honest, I'm okay with the drop and the switch because, let's face it, this was an experimentation series, right? You didn't have your big guns playing. You knew that three or four batsmen would be the ones who would kind of win you the games, if anything. So I'm technically okay with it. I also think that, yeah, batting positions come in again. Where does Pant bat? Where does Rahul bat? So I mean, to keep it short, I think I was okay with the change purely because it was experimentation.
I have a slightly different view to that. I think if you've given Pant only two chances and he hasn't come good in them, you effectively dropped him after he failed once at number three. So, to my mind, he's a young player. It dents his confidence, right? So, I would have given him a couple of other chances, maybe. And this is not a series that counts for much. And we have seen Rahul, and he's a class player. And he's played test matches, he's played one day games. I think it's a little bit unfair on Rishabh Pant. I understand why the team management have done it, obviously. But I think it's a little bit unfair on Rishabh Pant to drop him after just two T20 games and not really giving him a proper kind of run in this format of the game.
Yeah.
That's my personal view.
In fact, just to add on, I think I get where you're coming from. I just think what the team has made quite clear is that Dinesh Karthik is going to be the backup keeper for the next 12 to 15 months. And so if you're not dropping Karthik, you want to test out Pandey. Again, it comes back to the question of Pant really doesn't feature in the next 12 months plan for India. So I think given him a chance, very good. But I actually think Rahul is more in the mix leading up to June 2019 compared to Pant.
I mean, maybe you could think of Pant as a backup opener if something happens to Shikhar, for example, a left-handed backup. But obviously, Rahul's been there. He's the incumbent backup, right? Rahane as well.
From a mixed perspective, Pant doesn't feature in the next 12 months. He definitely features in the next 5 years. But yeah.
Okay, got it. Thank you. Second question before I go to the virtual semi-final wrap-up. Just a quick one in one sentence. Predictions for the final, India versus Bangladesh on Sunday in Sri Lanka.
India versus Bangladesh in Sri Lanka. Definitely India. I definitely predict Rohit won't do well because he's done his one in 5-7 matches already. So I don't think Rohit will do well. I think it'll be Shikhar and Raina. So that's mine.
DJ?
I think it's tough, man. T20, it can change in an over. So I think Bangladesh have more of a chance in this format than any other format, to be completely honest. But India is clearly the favorite, and unless Bangladesh come up with a real surprise, it's going to be India all the way.
So the reason I ask that is it's March 17th, 2018. 11 years ago this day, March 17th, 2007, Group B of the ICC World Cup versus Spain.
Ouch.
India batted first in a 50 over, got 191 all out, and Bangladesh chased it down, in what was the first upset of that World Cup. So that was 11 years ago this day. I just thought, we should put that out there. While Bangladesh's bowling has changed pretty much completely, the three batsmen who scored 50s for them in that match were Tamim, Shakib, and Mushfiqur. So really, a lot of consistency in the side. I knew you were both going to predict India. DJ, I'm surprised you said Bangladesh has a shot, but I thought that was just interesting that we're 11 years from that game. Obviously, a game of much more significance 11 years ago than this one, but it'll be interesting.
But is any of the India, apart from Dhoni's, Dhoni's not playing this game, but are any of the Indian players the same? I don't think they are, right?
Actually, none. I'm just looking at the squad.
Yeah. Dhoni would be the only one still playing.
That's
from
correct.
That
yeah,
lineup.
So completely different Indian side and a lot of continuity in the Bangladeshi side, which is quite telling about 11 years apart.
Also,
brought back a lot of depressing memories.
Also, still looks like he's 18.
So he's one of the club, right?
Who's that? Did you say Shahid Afridi? What?
Not Shahid. Mushfiqur is coming a second close to Shahid. Very close.
Okay.
All right, guys, I'll quickly wrap up the virtual semi-final that happened, and then we'll flow into the next topic. So, sixth match, Sri Lanka versus Bangladesh. Whoever wins makes it to the final. Bangladesh won the toss, chose to chase. Sri Lanka crumbled at the top. They fell to 41 for 5 in 8 overs. And then the two Pereiras, Kusal and Thisara, had a brilliant partnership to get them to a respectable total, 159 for 7. Bangladesh, meanwhile, when they started their chase, they were, I want to say, 97 for 2 after 12 overs. So coasting, on track to do well. And then they started to lose wickets, and it got to a place probably closer than it should have been. But in the final over, they needed 12 runs of the over. Without going into too much detail, the Sri Lankan bowler bowled two bouncers, both above shoulder, below head height. Um, After the first one, it was not signaled as a bouncer, it was not signaled as a no ball. The second delivery, which eventually ended up in a run out, was signaled a no ball, we believe, by the leg umpire, but not signaled a no ball by the main umpire. And that just caused some chaos on the field. Shakib, who was captain, was on the sidelines fighting with the third umpire, eventually resulting in him, in his anger, signaling his two batsmen to come off. So there was about a 10-minute delay in the game. The batsmen weren't sure what to do. They started walking towards the boundary. Common sense prevailed. They did not go off. They decided, okay, we're going to go on and continue batting. 12 needed from 4 with Mahmudullah on strike. He hits a 4, gets a double, and then with 6 needed off 2 balls, he hits a 6 and finishes it in 1 ball. So outstanding finish. Great, great cricket. Great batting from Mahmudullah, who ended on 43 of 18. But a little bit of chaos from a discipline and a gameplay in the gentleman's game standpoint. So I wanted to say I think I struggled with this one a little. I understand Shakib's frustration, not getting a no ball, which could have been game changing because it would have been an extra delivery and a free hit. But at the same time, knowing the game we play and the rules that the umpire's decision on things like no balls is final, signaling his players to come off, which he admitted later was not a good call, just happened in the heat of the emotion. So that's what happened in the game. They've said Sri Lanka and Bangladesh are friends off the field. They'll figure it out. But, lots going on in the world of cricket as we think about the role of discipline in the sport. And I think that's a good transition into our second topic, which is going to be about discipline. Varun?
Yeah.
Yeah,
I think it's very interesting. I think DJ is going to talk a little bit more about the discipline angle and what's been happening in South Africa as well. I think, from my perspective, just one line: the same rules should apply to everybody, right? And the fact is, I don't know whether the ICC is going to take any action against Warner, but it was very interesting for me to see that both Rabada and Shakib came out later and acknowledged their mistake and said we should have been more calm. Yet we haven't heard anything of that sort from Warner. So DJ, over to you.
Yeah, I was just going to add actually onto what Ashwin said. The Sri Lanka-Bangladesh incident had another nuance to it actually, which leads us nicely into the South Africa-Australia game. Apparently, the substitute that had gone out to the Bangladeshi batsman had got into a bit of a shoving match with the Sri Lankan players.
Yeah.
And that is actually what pissed Shakib off. And that's when he started signaling them to come off. So there was it wasn't he didn't like throw Ben Stokes punch at the guy, but there was a shove. Yeah. And there was physical contact between the players. And this, as I said, leads us nicely into our next topic. After all, our podcast and our show is called Edges and Sledges. And this seems to be all we're talking about. Sledging. I mean, there's not that much edging going on. But in the second test match between South Africa and Australia, the South Africans hit back. They won the second test match by 6 wickets. Rabada was the star of the show. He took 11 wickets, taking the top 6 out in the first innings and the top 5 out in the second innings. So he got the big fish. He got Warner out, and in the first innings he got Smith out, LBW. Now, a great ball, a bit of reverse swing, traps Smith in front. Rabada obviously gets excited, runs towards the batsman, yells, yes, yes, yes. And then Steve Smith looks up and kind of comes into his line of sight. And they then collide. Well, they don't collide very hard, but their shoulders hit each other. If you were reading the Cricinfo commentary, because it was during the weekend, so most of us were reading it on Cricinfo at the time. Cricinfo says that there was nothing deliberate between them. It didn't seem like either of them had gone out of their way to make inappropriate, in quotes, contact with each other. But yes, there was a bit of feeling, and Rabada was hauled up immediately for inappropriate conduct. He, at the end of the game, was handed 3 demerit points, which by itself would not have been a problem. But last February, he had a similar incident with Niroshan Dickwella. Not a saint by himself, but Niroshan Dickwella had an incident where he barged him with his shoulder, got 3 demerit points there. Then the Lord's Test match, Rabada gave Ben Stokes, another person who was not a saint himself, a bit of a send off. So he got one demerit point, which led to him being banned for one test. Now, the rules are such that you carry your demerit points over even if you've been banned. So, uh, again, so he's at 4 demerit points after the Ben Stokes incident, and he's been banned for one test match, which was not great for him, obviously, him being the strike bowler and whatnot. Then he gives Shikhar Dhawan a send off. I think it was last month when India was in South Africa. Picks up another demerit point. That takes it to 5. He then picks up these 3, which take it to 8 in a 24-month period, which means he's now banned for 2 Test matches, which effectively meant that he was out of the series for the rest of the South African Australian series, which for the South Africans is absolute disaster with Dale Steyn not being fit enough to come back into the team. But the Australians must have been over the moon. I mean, here's a guy who's taken 11 wickets in the last game, basically bowled South Africa to a win. And here he is being hauled up for indiscipline and being banned for the next 2 games. I mean, and what it did end up leading to is a few interesting articles on Cricinfo that we read. One in which the Australians, and I don't know what kind of mental disintegration this was, but they're praising Rabada. So if you go into the Cricinfo website, it's an article where various Australian players have said that Rabada is a great bowler and all of that. And it's a bit strange. Yes, and the other article, I mean, on an ongoing series, I guess they just assume that he's out. Uh, but that brings us to the latest development in the saga, where he's saying that he didn't mean it, and therefore he's appealing against it. And he said that where I was at fault, I've accepted it. I accepted it at Lords. I accepted it against Dickwella. Here, I didn't mean it. So I don't know why I'm being given these 3 demerit points. So he's contesting the charge. So he may actually be back in time for the third Test match, because his appeal hearing is 2 days before. Um, what then? You end up in a situation where you have a team that's actually praising the bowler that's taken 11 wickets in the last game, thinking he's out, but he may not be. So that might backfire on the Aussies. And the other article, which was very interesting, was an article by our favorite commentator Sanju Manju on Cricinfo again, and that talks about turning the stump mics down. And I don't know what you guys thought about it. I sent it to you over the week, but it's he says that, oh, the cricket field should be a safe space, and oh, cricketers are not great at academics, and that's why they become cricketers and sportsmen, and therefore we should be allowing them to use whatever language that you want them to use. I mean, it's just so that it's an interesting article. It's worth a read. I think it says, let's turn the stump mics down, please. But I don't know what you guys thought about kind of the Australians first commenting on Rabada and how good he is, and also the article by Sanjay Manjrekar.
Yeah. Ashwin, you want to take that?
Yeah, sure, I can go. I don't have a lot of love for the way the Aussies handle the media, and the fact that you mentioned earlier, Warner hasn't even come out and acknowledged his mistake. I mean, it was on
Mm.
video. He was physically charging. So we talked about that a little bit last week. The other thing that happened that I saw an article about yesterday was Mitchell Stark, giving wisdom to the press, says things something like, you get more mature as you get older. He'll understand as he gets older. He's a good bowler, but
Mm.
I mean, Mitchell Stark in 2014 in a Mumbai match was fined for squaring off against Pollard in an IPL game. So,
Yeah,
of all
yeah.
people
Colin threw
to
his bat at him.
yeah. So of all people to, show up giving wisdom, I think the Aussies just don't show up very well here. Having said that, on the stump mic question, I think it could go either way. I remember growing up watching the game where you could barely hear what was happening on the stump mics.
Mm.
Today the technology exists. I don't think the stump mic should be up as a method of spying on the cricketers. I think they should be up, and I like it as a method of getting some insight. You get to hear a little bit about what Dhoni is saying to Chahal and Kuldeep on coaching them. You get to learn a little more about the game. I mean, different matches are different. I watch a lot of tennis. You can hear word for word what a tennis player is saying to the umpire when he or she's contesting a call.
Mm.
In American football, the referees actually have a mic that broadcasts in the entire stadium,
Mm.
where when they make a penalty call, they have to justify it. They say, penalty on the field, here's why I gave the call the way I did. So I think we live in an
Mm.
age where there's no such thing as being secret anymore, right? Data transparency. everybody should be able to hear everything. I think turning the mics down is just an excuse. I think we should be able to hear it. We just need to figure out how to operate, effectively on the field. Laura, thought?
I think, yeah, last point on this. I think it basically the stump mic piece. I think it's interesting to have it on. Like you said, data is available in all forms today, so it should be on. The only risk I see is that when a stump mic is on, uh, other match referees influenced by what the whole world is now saying and putting pressure on them. Because in a previous environment, they would have heard it only from two umpires on the field, taken a closed door decision between three of them. Today, as it's happening, Twitter probably has 1,000, 2,000, 10,000 feeds about it and tagging the ICC, saying, what is your take? What are you going to do, etc. So I think that pressure is not needed. It should be a closed room decision. But yeah, okay. So let's wrap up topic 2 with that. And for section 3 this week, we're just going to do very quick kind of flash highlights. So there's 3 things we wanted to discuss. Let me talk to the first one. I'll then introduce the second and pass it over to one of you guys. So the first was DJ just sent us an article to say that India might host the first day-night match later this year in the tour when West Indies comes, probably I think in October. So let me give my take on that, and I'll pass another topic to you guys. My view on that is I think it's quite exciting. I think Test cricket, if you look at it, does have empty stands. I think you need to get people to come after work. But most importantly, I think you need to cater to time zones. And the BCCI actually took a very interesting call, because I read an article this week to say that they have actually given up playing test matches in New Zealand in the near future, because a 3:30 a.m. India start is just not good for anyone, neither the audience nor the revenue pool for BCCI. So that was interesting, and I think with that the day night piece is. I think it should be done, and interestingly enough, I also read that BCCI hasn't got back to Cricket Australia on the first day-night test for India when they go down under in December, Jan this year. So interesting to hear BCCI announcing it against West Indies or potential against West Indies, but not yet having a say on the Australia one. Don't know if it's got something to do with the conditions and how they feel on that. So that was topic 1. I think let's go to topic 2. I think DJ or Ashwin, one of you guys sent across something which showed Ravi and Ashwin bowling leg spin. So I don't know, DJ, do you want to take that?
Yeah, it's he's not only bowling leg spin. It's a Ranji game that he's playing, I think. And I think it's 100 and some 90 odd for one. So he's obviously trying something on to try and get a wicket. But he's not only bowling leg spin. What was actually interesting is he's bowling leg spin with Kumble's action. It's the exact action that Anil Kumble used to have, which makes you think that has this been in the works for some time while Kumble was still coach of India? Because I mean, and maybe this is just a conspiracy theory at this stage, but Ashwin and Jadeja fell out of favor almost immediately after Kumble went.
Yeah.
So they stopped playing one-day games after the Champions Trophy, right?
Yeah. That's interesting.
And funnily enough, Kuldeep, who Kumble insisted plays the last test against Australia, is the one who's replaced him, and Kohli's old friend from RCB.
Yeah.
So it's so strange. I mean, the dynamics of team selection, like when Dhoni was captain, there were lots of players, let's say, from a certain yellow jersey team in the India. Obviously, they were all there on merit, especially Suresh Raina. But it is interesting how the dynamics work, because like RCB's now got Rahul, Kohli, Chahal, etc., etc. But yeah, so it's just a thought that has this been in the works for some time and is just coming out now, because it's amazing if Ashwin can be a off-spin bowler to left-handers, which is what he was doing, and bowling leg spin to right-handers. So we'll have to wait and watch whether he actually tries it out in a test match.
Yeah, interesting. In fact, sometimes you think with Kohli, it's more just, is he the young punk who just wants to do what he's told not to? So when he's told to play Kuldeep in a test, he'll say, no, I'll now play him in all the ODIs moving forward. So you can never tell with Kohli. But yeah.
So just quick point of view on that one. I watched the whole video. I think what's interesting that's going to take Ashwin some time from a game standpoint is his leg spin, because he's got Kumble's action, looks completely different to the off spin. So even on TV, as he's coming into his run up, you can very visibly tell which is the off, which is the leg.
Mm.
What makes some of the greats who can do both that great is the inability to tell, right? And that ability
Mm.
to disguise the ball. The last thought for me on this one, I'm more excited about Ashwin and the work he's been doing as a marketer than I am as a cricket fan, because the way he's managed the media and the press. We've been talking about Ashwin for the last month and a half. First, he got selected to Punjab captaincy. Sehwag's been talking about him.
Mm.
Now he's reinventing his game. He's done a great job of getting the media and all of us talking about him, even though he hasn't played limited overs cricket for India since July 2017. It's been
Mm.
9 months since he played the game. He played the tests against South Africa. So I thought he's done an amazing job of getting us to keep talking about him and keep sort of nudging at Kohli's heels to say I'm worthy of making it back to the side. So good job of him managing the press.
Yeah. Also on Twitter, right? He had that little spat with Herschel Gibbs about running. What was it? I think Gibbs made fun of him running too slowly, and basically he went straight back at Gibbs saying that I couldn't run quickly enough to the money or something. Made a match fixing jibe at him. So, yeah, Ashwin has stayed in the news and he has done a great job of it.
All right, final topic, just a quick one from, let's hear from Ashwin, is Kevin Peterson retired from all formats. Personally, I didn't know he was still not retired, but good that it's finally been said. I read an interesting one-liner on Twitter today that said that it's something around the lines of he's a South African who was a misfit in the English team, but he was also a South African who was a misfit with other South Africans in the English team. So a misfit all around, but quite a career. Ashwin, any last thoughts on Kevin Peterson?
I just think big character, right? He brought a lot of personality to the game.
Mm.
Well, it's sometimes good, sometimes bad, but he was a big hitter. He sort of pioneered the switch hit a little bit. He brought some more aggression that at least the English team at the time didn't have much of. So I thought, big character. He'll be missed. Hopefully, his influence and his legacy stays in the game for a long time.
Okay, great. So I think, I think that's it. I think we've under 30 minutes. We do want to keep it to under 30 minutes so that you guys can kind of listen to the podcast. And as always, we are always asking for feedback. So let us know if we can make this better in any way. And of course, like, share, subscribe, listen to the podcast. And we'll sign off now and we'll see you next week. All right. Thank you, everyone.
See you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.